Well, alrighty then. Welcome everybody to another edition of Drinks with Johnny. Very excited for today. Brandon, my co-host, Brandon Lombardo, the one with the most. How are you doing this evening, buddy?
I'm doing great, brother. How are you?
I'm doing fucking awesome, man. I had a great day. Just got my hair cut in preparation for this, and I saw my barber for the first time in about a month, which was great. I had other barbers while I was out on the road, so it's great to be back in Huntington Beach and have my proper barber on me.
How does it feel going to a different barber? I feel like that's cheating, Like, you have to trust that the other barbers are going to get it just right. Because
I
don't know, man.
I agree with you. Because you know what? I did prep my barber, my regular barber, Zach Teachman, down at Parlor 11, that I was going to be gone, so I was going to have some fill-ins. So we were able to get some fill-ins along the way. And they did a pretty good job. I took photos. This is how nerdy I am. I had Zach take photos all the way around, like a 360, and then I would show the barber what it's supposed to look like and try and match that instead of me trying to explain it. Because I don't know what the hell my haircut's called.
That's fair. That's fair. Did you get a Canadian cut?
I was in Canada the whole time, so yeah, it was.
Oh fuck yeah!
My first cut was in Quebec City. And then a lovely lady was a fan of the band. She did a great job. And then Edmonton, I believe. And was there another one? It might have just... Oh, there was one in Chicago as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
Two international cuts. That's nice. I like that. 2
international cuts. Well, we got an international guest today, too.
Of course, dude. I see your shirt.
Yeah.
You see my background. I see your shirt. Like, we should swap places. You would fit so well in this frame. And honestly, color-wise, I would fit better in that frame. We complement each other very well right now.
It's like we planned it or something. But yeah, our guest today is. We mentioned it a couple weeks ago on the show. I think when I was in Calgary, there's the Hitman Bar right attached. I believe I'm going to ask our guest Beans Hart, who is the daughter of Bret the Hitman Hart, the excellence of execution, the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. And apparently she's got some great stories, man. So in Calgary, we played at the Scotiabank Dome. And apparently there's the Hitman Bar is attached to it, right? Nice. And I had to leave to get to Vancouver, unfortunately. The crew stayed behind, which I got to give a shout out to the Avenged Sevenfold crew, everybody that did a great job on this last leg of the tour. Really appreciate you guys. And Calvin... is a big fan. He's Sinister Gates guitar tech. He's a big wrestling fan. We went to SoFi together and a few months back and saw WrestleMania. And yeah, he got to hang back and hang out with Beans, and who's friends with the Alexis on Fire dudes. If you watched that episode, they mentioned it that she was going to be out in Calgary. Evidently, she's a big Alexis on Fire fan. So she was there. I didn't get a chance to meet her while we were there because we were so in and out and on our way to Vancouver. But apparently at that bar, they have like the Eagle heavyweight title that Bret had. Like I have pictures with Calvin wearing it. He was rubbing it in real thick, by the way.
Dude, just Photoshop your face like onto his body with the belt.
Yeah.
That's a new memory for you.
Well, you're the guy who Photoshops everything for me. Like when we had Bischoff on the show, that was pretty great.
Oh my God, dude. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, apparently, like, they hung out for a couple hours and got, like, really great stories. I actually got, even without being there, I got memorabilia from Bret Hart right here. I got the shades signed by Bret Hart that night. So, yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, and evidently they hung out and just talked shop about old wrestling stories. And, obviously she's part of the royal family of Canada, right? I mean, that's the royal wrestling family right there.
And, it really is a lot of history.
Really, I mean, what's it called again? I always want to say the line. It's the den, right?
The dungeon.
Dungeon. I always fuck that up. The dungeon, where so many professional wrestlers have come through, generations, and just a huge family of wrestling. So I'm sure she's got great stories. I can't wait to dive into some of these and have some nostalgia. A couple weeks ago when I mentioned this, I was like, oh, yeah, I got the glasses because when I was a kid, I went to my first house show, as you remember, Brando, and I had those. So I asked my mom, this is funny, she came by today. I asked my mom if she could find the original photo of me at the house show. She said she was up for like 4 hours last night trying to find it, and she couldn't find it. So what she came up with, I'm going to show the audience this real quick. Anyone who's watching on YouTube. So instead, she comes back with some other photos, and around the same time, there's like this house show photo. I believe it's from the house show that I was at. I should probably put these a little closer to the camera there.
Yeah. Go closer.
There's that one. Pretty close. I'll bring it up closer. Those ones aren't as cool because this one was my birthday in 1992.
What are you unwrapping?
I am unwrapping a wrestling ring. That's what I asked for. But they got me the generic version. So it just says wrestling ring, but with a WWF Gene Okerlund microphone. So that I could,
very cool.
Yeah, so I could pretend to interview myself and my wrestling buddies, and then the Christmas came because I told them, you got the wrong ring, so they got me this one, which was the actual WWF one, which is the one that had all the commercials that I wanted with all the action figures.
Hell yeah.
So this was all around the same era, and this is me back to my birthday holding it up with the sick aquarium in the back there. Dude, so that was 92. It looks 80s, but it was so 92.
We're gonna have to like superimpose those into the video. Those are great.
Yeah. I'll send them to you so you can do that. Okay.
Well, yeah, good morning. Is Oreo.
That's Oreo. Good morning, Oreo.
This is my dad's
cat. What's up, Oreo?
Yeah, she's never this loving, so obviously it goes hand in hand.
Nice.
Oh my goodness, I love the shirt.
Thank you. Yeah, so welcome to the show, Beans Hart on the show, everybody. Really excited to have you here, and thank you for taking the time. I know we tried to schedule it the other night, and you work as an EMS. So obviously those hours can change up a little bit there, huh?
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like you kind of get it being a musician because you have to work on the spot. So
yeah.
And I was like, oh my goodness, I have to run out of the office and like at least text you guys because I was too worried that an email wouldn't make it to you guys in time. So I was like, I'll text.
Well, it worked out well. We're all good. We're here now. Good morning. How's your morning going so far? You're out in Calgary right now, right?
Yeah, it's actually kind of cold. It's nice because it's been so hot. We had a heat wave, so it was like 35. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit because you guys are from California, but yeah, it was like 34, and now it's probably like 7.
Wow, that's quite a drop. Yeah. That's quite a drop.
Yeah, super big drop. How have you guys been? How have been getting back to home and everything?
Oh yeah, it was great. Yeah, so everyone knows that's listening. We didn't get to meet in person. I did see you in the hallway, but I wasn't sure it was you when I was on my way to the stage in Calgary when we played at the Scotia Bank Saddle Dome a couple weeks ago. So basically, everybody listening at home, Beans was at the show. She's fans and friends with the Alexis on Fire guys that we were out on the road with. And was hanging out, and unfortunately I had to get to Vancouver. My convoy buses were making the trip to Vancouver from Calgary, which was 10 plus hours with buses and bus drivers. It makes it a whole other thing. Oh, yeah. So to get there, we had to leave a little quick. So I missed out on the Hitman Bar, which is the shirt that I'm wearing right now.
I love it.
I have a question though, because I didn't get to hang out. I walked around a lot. I walked around the riverbank behind the arena there. Earlier in the day, and then I found out later that the Hitman Bar was around. Is it actually attached to the arena, or is it like next door?
It's like maybe like a block away. Like it's at the casino that's right off of the Stampede grounds. And so I was a little bit worried when I brought some of the guys because I was like, I don't know how busy it's going to be, but yeah, it's really nice because my older brother also has a wrestling promotion now. And it's called Dungeon Wrestling, and so that's been held at the Victoria Pavilion, and it's now starting to build momentum and get some pretty big crowds. So that's attached to the Stampede ground. So afterwards, you can kind of go over to the bar, and like everybody kind of gets together over there. So it's a really neat thing to see. But it's maybe like a 5-minute walk.
I'm so bummed. I probably passed right by it when I was walking around and didn't realize it. I actually didn't get a chance to even go to the bar that day. This shirt was given to me by one of our fans in the meet and greet that night. And he was like, I know you're a big wrestling fan. Did you know that the Hitman Bar is over here? And I was like, No, I didn't know there was Hitman Bar, but I know that Bean's Heart is supposed to be here tonight. So, and then the whole story came out. Calvin, our guitar tech, Sin's guitar tech, is a huge wrestling fan too, and a couple of the other guys.
Yeah.
And he really rubbed it in that he got to hold the Eagle World Title WWF belt, and I was like,
Yeah.
he really rubbed it in because the next day he made it to Vancouver at night, and we watched SummerSlam.
Yeah.
A day later because we had the show Saturday night, and then SummerSlam was in Detroit that night, and so Sunday we had a day off. We watched it in my hotel room. It was an awesome show, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you catch it afterward? Because I know you were at
No, I didn't watch.
concert.
I didn't watch that one. I mean, my dad was watching it, so I'm staying with my dad for the next month while we're getting ready to move into our new place.
Okay.
And so, which is funny enough that I'm here. But he records them all, and so I saw him catching a few of the matches or whatever. And then he always is watching like SmackDown and Raw. And like I always say to people, like, I'm a wrestling fan myself. And like most people don't want to talk about wrestling. I'm like, this is literally what like we were bred for in this family. This is all we know. This is my dad only wants to talk about wrestling. Like when people try to be like modest and be like, oh, I won't ask him any questions. I'm like, trust me, ask him questions. That's what he wants to talk about. It's probably very similar with you and music, where it's like people might want to tread lightly, and then it's like, no, this is what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad. I'm so happy to hear that, right, Brandon? Like I'm sitting there going, like, when I do finally meet your father, then I'm not going to feel bad about asking him about like all the stuff that I grew up watching with him. And it was really interesting. I was telling Brandon before you got on here. I actually my first ever house show I went to in 1992. I was a huge Bret Hart fan. I was probably all of 7, 8 years old, I think, at the time, and my dad actually spent the money and got me the ones from the concession stands, the glasses, and the white foam Intercontinental title because he was the Intercontinental champ at the time. And I wore that around for like weeks. Like I would just like anywhere I could, I wore that like just out and about, going to the stores and whatever. And I asked my mom to try and get me like there was pictures of this like somewhere, and I was like, where? So she spent the other night 4 hours trying to find these pictures for me. Couldn't find them. She found other pictures that I already showed Brandon. They're not really worth showing again. There's to our fans, like of me just being a wrestling fan at that time. But the whole point of that story that I want to say is I want to thank you again because Calvin did bring me these glasses the next day that you guys got signed for me. And that means a lot to me too because I did have I don't have them anymore, obviously, but I had the generic ones from the concession that night that I just rocked everywhere. So I'm happy to have the legit ones signed now, and I'm going to get a case for them and everything. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. I actually, after the show, I was like, I'll run up and go grab some stuff because I was talking to one of the Alexis guys, Chris Steele.
Chris Steele,
and he's like, yeah, we got some really big fans and like we'd love to come by the bar. And so I was like, oh, okay, let me go talk to my dad. I'm staying there. So I'll go grab some fine glasses and it'll be fresh delivered, which is funny because my dad, I wish that he could come to concerts more often. He's a big music guy too. And I feel like my eclectic style of music and all the different things that I listen to, I owe a lot of that to him. Like everything's been always music or wrestling related. And so as soon as I came up, he was happy to do it. And I wish that he could have came down, but since it was SummerSlam, it was too busy.
Yeah.
Otherwise he would have came down to the bar.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. Oh, well, I'm actually glad he didn't because had that happened on top of everything, I would have been extremely heated.
Oh, man.
I would have never let the rest of my band and convoy and my tour manager who decided we had to leave that night hear the end of that one.
Yeah.
But, no, so it's interesting. You said that he's kind of responsible for your eclectic music taste and stuff because I did after knowing that you were willing to come on the show and share some stories, which I'm sure we're going to get into in a second, because I know Calvin and Chris Steele and the other guys were just telling me like all the great stories you have growing up around all these wrestlers, and I can't wait to get into that. But before we get into that, I just wanted to ask about your musical taste, because I did look on your Instagram afterward and like try and get a feel to know who you are a little bit before you came here on the show.
Yeah, of course.
You're quite a concert goer, it looks like. Like you like
to.
Yeah. So, and obviously, and you just said you credited that to your father. What was it like growing up musically around, and how did you get to where you are now, where you want to constantly go to these concerts, and you have what seems to be a pretty eclectic taste, as you said, of kind of a wide spectrum of genres.
Well, I think I definitely scare a lot of people at work because when it's not busy, then I usually am listening to like Slipknot. So you'll see Slipknot in the background, and then also know like jump to something like Justin Bieber, and then people are like, "What are you doing?" But I grew up singing since I was young, so I was a classically trained singer up until I was about grade 7, and then I moved into more of the R&B stuff just because my voice was a lot lower, and then I moved into, I would say, more of the alternative rock. Like I love the Fiona Apple and all that kind of sound, and like the Lana Del Rey now. It's is similar to what Fiona Apple was, but like that alternative rock style. Like I'm a '90s grunge kid, 100%. Like I love Alice in Chains. I love Pearl Jam. Like all that is due to my dad, like because that's his big band. So like I remember going to the Pearl Jam concert with my dad, and I got the set list, and so like I still have like that written out set list by Eddie Vedder, and like those things are like priceless to me. And then I also really like folk, so I listen to a lot of like Neil Young and like a lot of blues inspired stuff. So like my music taste is so wide that I think people might think I have like ADHD or something, because I'm like, I don't know, like I just can never decide, and my playlist is kind of scary. I listen to a lot of hip hop, but like majority of my music is a lot of screamo and a lot of heavy metal stuff. That's my favorite.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so. It's funny though that I do think that there's something that comes out of being a alternative grunge '90s fan at that time that did kind of like, for me, I look back at it now, and you don't realize it at the time, but I look back at it now, and a lot of people who were growing up in that era and became big fans of these bands like Pearl Jam and stuff, I feel like it just lent itself to a more eclectic sound. Like that was like right when things started to become a little bit more eclectic and different. It wasn't like here's metal, here's punk, here's rock and roll, here's rap. Like here's country. That was like the first time it was just kind of like pushing the boundaries a little bit. So if you were a fan of that, it kind of set you up for what was to come later, and now how much more open the genres have become.
Totally. The only one that I can't really get behind is like the mixing of hip hop and country. Not the biggest fan of country to begin with. Like when I was doing my music, they tried to push me in that direction, because I'm sure that you were aware that Brooke Hogan was doing music.
Yeah, I remember that.
And she was doing more of like the rap.
She was doing
stuff.
like pops. She was doing like pop stuff, wasn't she?
I think so. And like I'm not really like I'm fine listening to pop music. Obviously, like I don't mind it. Like I don't hate any kind of music, but I didn't want to be a pop star. I never wanted to be a pop star. And I also couldn't see music as a business. That was really tough for me, like because it was something that was so intimate to me. So when I did start to, I think I got signed to a label. I can't remember for the life of me which one. I was out of Toronto. I think it was the same one as Motorhead, but they were trying to push me and pin me up against Brooke Hogan. So it's like, okay, we're going to market you this way. We want you to be dancing. You need to be doing this. And I was like, I just like you got the wrong girl.
Yeah. I'm trying to do this because I love music, not because I'm trying to compete with the Hogans over here,
Exactly. And like I couldn't see it as a marketing angle, like even if I tried. So that was a lot of the reason why I quit music, is like I can still do it without trying to sell myself. And it's like my mom was devastated. She still never forgave me. But I went and lived in Nashville for a bit, I think for about 8 months, around there. And I worked with a vocal coach, and they also tried to push me in the country direction. I was like, I'm not a country singer. I can sing country, but like that wasn't where my passion was. But I learned like so much about the musical industry and like how all those different tones and like genres, they come into play with each other. So I do respect country. I just don't listen to it as much. And it's like, but I can't get behind the rap in the country. I'm like, what is happening right now?
I think it has to. I think just like anything else, when people are trying something new, it's like, you got to find the one that's doing it right for you to like really get into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
there's always there's someone out there that's doing it really well. I mean, I love the was it John Rich and all of his boys. I can't remember the Mafia. What do they call themselves? It'll come to me in a second. Mafia? No. That's not the hip hop group. The country guys that we're friends with out in Nashville. It'll come to me in a second, but like Cowboy Troy was on stuff with like Big and Rich and stuff. Yeah. And that was like the first time I heard like like a hip hop kind of vibe on country, and I love Cowboy Troy. I think he's great. I have a lot. I've had a lot of fun with that guy down on Broadway. Like that,
Yeah.
I think Jelly Roll does it pretty well. Like he's been coming up like hot in the past couple of years, and I don't know. It's a good mix of like rock, rap, and country. I've seen him live a couple of times, and it's been a good show. Because I'm the same way. Like, couldn't get into country if I had to, but like that's my like slow roll into it. I'm like, okay, I can get down with this a little bit, and then maybe get my feet wet and see, you know.
So wait, you guys, both of you guys don't listen to country. Like, so is it because you think of country like the old school country, or have you tried to get into some of like the more modern? I would say because there's so many great writers in it. So I see it from a point of view. There's so many amazing country writers out there, especially out of places like Nashville, like you're talking about, Beans.
Yeah, like I mean, I shouldn't say that I don't like country, because I do. I like Chris Stapleton for like more of the modern stuff, so I like that kind of sound. But then like I like old country. Like I can listen to old country nonstop, like your Alan Jacksons, your all of that stuff. Like I'm fully in it. And I like Keith Urban too, like some of his stuff, but I find that, like, I'm trying to think of the band that I really don't like. Florida Georgia Line.
Dude.
Like that, like that sound, like not
it's too,
I can't. And it's like, as soon as I hear it, and I mean, I live in Calgary, so it's very country inspired.
Yeah, I was just
no, like I'll probably leave the place.
So I'm glad you brought up the fact that Calgary is such like a country inspired place. So for a couple things, Brandon, I don't know how many times you've been out to Calgary.
0.
You've never been to Calgary. Okay, cool.
No.
You're gonna love this part. So I got to ask about the two things. One, the Stampede. So we heard about it like all you know for a while, and our singer was actually talking to his vocal coach about it. I guess his vocal coach is like, "You got to go. I've always wanted to go." This is like an 80-year-old vocal coach, dude, and he's like, "You know, I've always wanted to go. You got to go check it out for me." He didn't end up checking it out, but he asked around. He's like, "Is that a real thing, or am I being ribbed here?" And it's like, so. Can you explain to the people who like probably Brandon and myself? I didn't actually witness it. I've heard of this Calgary Stampede, but can you explain to me what this madness is that happens for like a full month in Calgary?
So it's 10 days. It's 10 days.
10 days, okay.
Usually at the very beginning of July. It's very country inspired, but like as the years have gone on, it's actually bringing in a lot more music, I guess, like diversity. So like there's a EDM tent kind of thing that's like off of, let's say, a couple of blocks away from the Saddle Dome. And then a lot of the country stuff that's right where the Saddle Dome is, that's this Calgary Stampede grounds. So it turns into like almost like a big fair. And there's a bunch of like rides, there's things that you can do. And I don't go to them a lot. Like, I mean, I did when I was younger. And my dad obviously participates in some of the stuff there. And it's a lot of like charity stuff and whatever, but it's very country inspired. There's a lot of drinking that goes on, and I think like that's part of my EMS side, where it's like I don't want to be there because it's like I know that how many calls we got to send this place. Like that's where I go, where it's like I can't trust these people for the life of me. It's like a big New Year's Eve party that doesn't end for 10 days. It's like people just get drunker and stupider than normal.
Yeah, it's so like a lot of the rookies come out for those kind of things too, right?
There's people like barfing everywhere, or like, you know, there's fights everywhere. Like it's just kind of like,
and everyone's wearing hats, right? Everyone's wearing hats, right?
Yes.
Just painting the picture. There's a bunch of drunk Canadians with their cowboy hats on, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
And I mean, like it does have great things. Like there's amazing food like on the grounds, and so like they'll have things like scorpion pizza, like really like abnormal and like things that you wouldn't typically eat, and like it's supposed to be like a cool thing to go see.
That's what we were just talking about, eating scorpions before you.
I had wild. When I was in China, it was the only time I've ever had scorpion. I was telling him about it. We were just shooting the shit, and he's like, "I don't think I would do that." And I'm like, "Well, it was deep fried. It's not gonna be eating a live scorpion. Like I don't know."
I guess it's a lot more commonplace than I thought. Shit, I'm gonna have to try scorpion.
Well, you over there in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, you're not getting out enough.
No, I guess not. Man.
Yeah, there's lots of cool food. I'm trying to think of the other big ones that they had this year. Like they'll have like a tomato Slurpee, like something that's like so far off that you would never.
Okay,
like,
that sounds
see.
nasty. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
that sounds
right?
really nasty.
But then people will try it, and you'll see all the feedback, and it's like, oh, it's actually really good. And it's just like these little food truck things that, like, I don't know where they come up with the
ideas. No way it was actually good. They were just drunk, like you said before. Like, it was just
They're
so
one
good.
of the barfers. Yeah,
so the other thing I heard was, the other thing I heard at the Scotiabank arena there, like Garth Brooks holds like the most sellouts in a row record there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I was talking to you about it before, Brandon. Like Billy Joel has it in Madison Square Garden. He has like 19 or something in a row or something ridiculous. He has like the most sellouts in Madison Square Garden for a musical artist. And I guess Garth has that at Scotia. So it's like they're ensconced in some country lifestyle up there. Oh, and it's beautiful, man. Like right behind there too, right behind the arena, all those houses like up on the hill and everything. It's just very, it's not farm country. It's just like countryside country. It looks like up there, right?
Yeah, but they're building a new arena. I don't know when it's supposed to be coming. And I actually don't know where it's going to be. Like, I don't know if it's still going to be in the same area just because of Saddle Dome. And I mean, maybe your tech guys found the same. It's pretty hard to set up your show because of the way that the Saddle Dome's shaped. And so Calgary misses out on a lot of concerts compared to Edmonton. And so, like, for myself, I was very bummed out that Slipknot didn't come to Calgary. They went to Edmonton. And I tried to convince my spouse. No, I tried to convince my spouse to go with me. And he's like, I'm not going to Slipknot concert for a few hours and then driving back to Calgary. I'm like, come on. I almost went by myself. That's how close I was.
Big Slipknot fan. I like it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I love Corey Taylor. And like, I'm also a big Korn fan. And so I saw like Korn's I'd say Jonathan Davis and Brian Welsh. Like they're probably two of my favorite musicians like of all time. So I love everything that they do. I had the opportunity to meet them in Toronto. I think it was during SummerSlam, oddly enough. And they were there because SummerSlam was in Toronto. So I went for that show. And then I saw Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins. And like, he's a big wrestling guy. So I know Billy. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, there's a Korn show that's going to be here. And like, I got to go. I've never been before. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll hook you up. It was the greatest show. Like, I was so excited that I went. Like, it was the best trip I've ever had. So I got SummerSlam. I got to see Alexisonfire and them. I got to see Alice in Chains, like the newer band, because Dallas was performing with them. And then I got to see Korn. And then I think I saw somebody else too. I can't really remember. But Korn blew me away. Like, I'm a huge, huge Korn fan. I'd say like top 5 bands of all time is Korn.
Yeah, they're a great band. They put on a great show too.
They
always do a great job.
And I like their story. I'm kind of like I'm all about like the story behind the scenes. So I like learning about bands, and that's actually a lot of how I met Dallas Green originally. And so I fell in love with Dallas Green's music in Alexisonfire before he was City and Color, which is his slower stuff. And like I loved Alexisonfire since I was like 16, and then I was reading through their Wikipedia trying to learn like more about them, like where they were from. I didn't even know they were Canadian at the time. And then I was like, oh, they're Canadian. And then it said in their Wikipedia, I don't know if it's still there, that like Dallas Green is an avid wrestling fan. And like me and my dad have been listening to that music together. So then I was like, oh my goodness. And this is when MySpace was a thing. And so I messaged him on MySpace and like just said like, hey, like Bret Hart's daughter, I'm a really big fan of yours. And like, I would love to see you in concert anytime you're in Calgary kind of thing. And I got a message right away back. And I didn't think I was going to like, I actually just was being silly 16-year-old girl. And then he messaged me right away. And then we ended up meeting, and I've been friends with them since been 16 years old. And it's just been the coolest experience, like something that I've done some really cool things with Alexisonfire, and I don't even think they realize how big of a fan I am of them.
That's so rad. I'm glad too. Yeah, I was talking to those guys, and we were. It came up that I was a huge wrestling fan, and that's where they were like, "Oh yeah, Beans, Bret Hart's daughter is going to be out in Calgary. We'll have to introduce." And then we didn't get a chance to. As I said, I saw you. I wasn't sure it was you. I was like, because no one said anything. I'm walking to the hall, Brandon, like literally my ears are in, like the music's starting, and I'm like walking. I'm like, I think that was her. As I was walking by.
Yeah. Did I look pregnant? Because I am pregnant.
Yes, and congratulations.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
It's okay. You didn't look pregnant. I'm not allowed to say it. I don't think I'm supposed to say that.
You're totally allowed to say it. I'm
like
far
you were
enough
glowing.
along.
You were glowing. Beans.
Glowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you were right out there. And then, so you stuck around for the whole concert too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Music's my thing. Like if I could say that anything is my thing, I'd say music is, and then I'd go maybe sports next, and then I would do food. I love it all. Yeah, like that's usually the three things that I travel for. And like I used to go to Coachella a lot and like go see some of those bands if they had a good lineup. I've been trying to go to Knotfest, but need to find a partner. That's a problem with growing up in Calgary. I don't have a lot of music partners out here that listen to the same music that I do. And like I got some people that like I have a punk band friend that would go with me, but like they don't want to spend that kind of money usually to go travel for music. So I'm like, this is the only reason why I would travel.
Well, I'm glad we got to go out there then.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And I've been a big fan of Avenged Sevenfold for a long time too. I was actually telling my spouse, and he's like, "What?" I used to have a crush on M Shadows when I was really young.
Used to?
Yeah.
Used to?
Oh, yeah, used to.
And then you saw him 2 weeks ago, and you're no longer have the crush? Is that what happened?
No, I got a spouse now.
Oh, okay. Well, you can still have crushes. I disagree with that. You can still have crushes and still be crushes aren't. You could still find someone attractive and crush on them. You know.
Yeah. That's true, because I was laughing so hard in the car, like I didn't even tell him the story yet, and I was already laughing. He's like, "What are you laughing at?" And I was like, "This is just such a small world sometimes." Like here I am, like I forget how old I was. I probably was early 20s, and I'm 35 now. But early 20s and being like, "Oh, I have this really big crush on this musician," and then all of a sudden, skip forward however many years later, that there I am standing next to him, and it's like I could literally touch him if I wanted to. And I'm like, this is so weird, and I'm standing looking at Justin, and that's my spouse, and I'm like, I can't tell him here. I'll have to wait until I get to the car. But it was funny. It was one of those like small moments where I never thought in a million years that would ever happen.
Oh, that's so it's so funny. So next time we'll have to make sure that next time we're in the same city, whatever, maybe it's not Calgary or whatever, we'll have to stay in contact. I'm sure Matt would love to meet you. I mean, I've always had a crush on him too, and he met me. And no, but you know, he's a big wrestling fan too. Me and him are the wrestling fans of the band. So I'm sure he would be honored to meet you. So yeah.
Well, I am gonna ask you guys wrestling questions too.
Let's go. Why don't you start out? Let's get into the wrestling stuff. Brandon's been patiently quiet over there because he hears me talk about music enough, and he's like, like whatever. But you see his background over there. He's real excited to talk some wrestling. So
I am.
Yeah,
that's like you gave your top three. Mine is probably like wrestling, food, music.
Yeah. It's still the same top three, so I feel like we're gonna get along great.
Yeah, definitely.
Those are in my top three, but they're all like even, I think.
Yeah,
wait, I'm sorry. You replace food with alcohol, and that's mine.
Well, we can include that in. That's like a part of food.
Yeah, that's got to be a part of it's a part of diet, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's get into some wrestling, Beans.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, you're part of the Canadian royal family. Like I mean, as we talked at the top of here, you know, a lot of people would. That was the interesting thing too. That Calvin and Chris and the rest of the guys in Lexus on Fire were telling me. It was like, yeah, she enjoys talking about it, so you just ask her whatever and like just go with it, and it's great because like we said, I would had I not known that, I would have been stepping on light water here or whatever. It's tiptoeing.
No, I want I want the full deal. Like if you want to know something, I'll tell you what I know if I know it. Of course, I won't lie to you.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, there's so many things to go over in the course of, you know, your dad's history, your family's history. There's so much, you know, there's so much to go off of. I'll just dip the toes in a little bit here and talk about, like, I got to imagine all the wrestlers that came through the dungeon, the famous dungeon, everything. I imagine there's somewhere you had you were growing up as a young girl, and there's all the wrestlers in your guys' houses, you know, like out there. Like I think Calvin mentioned you calling Rowdy Piper Uncle Roddy, you know, stuff like that. So like, maybe you could go into let's start in the you know, your earliest memories of realizing that you're part of this family, and there's just all these, you know, wrestlers around.
I feel like that's a loaded question, because like my family is obviously all wrestling. We are, like, my grandpa was wrestling, my uncles are all wrestling, my aunts are married to wrestlers, and my dad's a wrestler. So like I do have this great appreciation for it. That's why I enjoy talking about it so much. But like from the dungeon side, like when I look at somebody like my grandpa was a very like intimidating man, because like he was not wrestling the way that I see my dad as a wrestler. Like he was actually wrestling you. And like, I would see grown men cry out of the dungeon, or like, because every Sunday we'd go up there for dinners, like family dinners. So my dad has 11 brothers and sisters. We have a huge family. And so there's, I think, 36 cousins, or I don't even know how many sometimes. And I'm like, and they're all in Calgary. So most of them are in Calgary, at least. I think some of them are now in Florida, like my cousin Natty and stuff. But like, Calgary's always been like that place where we all kind of get together. And then Sunday you go to my grandpa's, and then all of a sudden you'd be hearing like grown men like screaming for their life downstairs. And like, that was just normal. That's like, I don't know if when you went to your grandparents' house, how often you heard grown men crying out of their basement. But
not grown men, no. We'll talk about that one a different time. No, I'm just kidding. No, that is an interesting perspective, and I guess it's earned its. I mean, you earned the name, the dungeon, like that, and but I guess furthermore on that, are you like sitting there, just trying to block it out, or is it so common at that point you're just eating, talking over it like it's like nothing?
It kind of depends. Like, so like, because I feel like I was less interested as a kid in the wrestling stuff, at least at that age, because I would have been, you know, like 7 or 8. So I was more interested in playing with my cousins and stuff. But like more of my male cousins, they would all go downstairs and watch, and they would learn. And so you have my cousins like Harry, who's the Bulldog's son. He'd be down there with my cousin Matt and Ted. And like, they would all just be sitting around the mat watching whoever my grandpa was stretching, is what we'd call it. And like, it would just be more of a learning experience. And then you also have my uncles down there too, maybe trying to give like feedback or lessons on things. And like, you can see a lot of it, like in my dad's documentary, Wrestling with Shadows, when there's this scene where my grandpa's stretching that, I think he was a German guy. And like, cause there's lots of people that would come in from like European countries and just like stay at my grandpa's for a few days. Like, he had every person you could imagine stay through there. But like, he would come down, and they always come down with the confidence, like, oh yeah, you're not going to be able to beat me kind of thing. And it's like, my grandpa will make you scream for your life. And so like, it was just such a weird twisted thing, but like, there's such a respect there that and I see it a lot now in my dad, that like, when I see him in the back at like different wrestling shows or whatever, all the younger guys will just corral around him. And like, all he's doing is giving like technical pointers and like talking about what they should do. And like, my dad's a visionary, and like, he does all of the match planning for my brother's shows, like for dungeon wrestling as well. And like, cool. I think in the initial phases of when my brother decided to start that, I think he was writing more of the storylines, and then you can see the difference as soon as my dad like came in. And it's like, he really is like, he's just such a visionary when it comes to this art and his craft. Like, I can't speak volumes about it, but like, watching all those guys go around my dad, like, even I was telling the guys when they were at the Hitman Bar, I went to Clash of the Clans in the UK with my dad. It was the first time I've ever been to the UK. And we were sitting, he's like, I don't want to go, because he's doing autograph sessions for a different promoter. So he doesn't like to usually cross over that, because he doesn't want to, you know, conflict of interest kind of thing. Right. But the promoter said, like, encouraged him to go kind of thing. So he said that he had like a 30-second TV bit, and he's like, and then we're going to leave. He's like, I just want to go. I don't want to, like, I'm tired kind of thing, because he's been signing all day. And I was like, okay, but like, we're in the UK for 3 days. Like, that's it. Like, this is my time. I love wrestling, and I love watching these guys. Like, it was Edge and what's his name? I'm drawing a blank. He's the big Scottish guy. Drew McIntyre.
Drew McIntyre.
Yeah. And like, I'm very good friends with both of them. I love them very much. Like, I grew up with Edge, living in my house, like, since I was a kid. He was one of the guys that came out of the dungeon. So I was like, come on, like, trying to convince my dad to stay. And that's where it's like funny, because that just shows how much my dad loves wrestling. So we get there to the arena, we go sit down. It's the first time my dad was ever sitting like in the crowd, like in the front row. And he's never actually been a fan before, like getting to see it from like a fan's perspective.
Right.
And so we're sitting front row, and then Drew McIntyre, I didn't even know this until like a little bit later or maybe a few years ago. So my dad was the one that found Drew McIntyre at an autograph session. Like, he was a big fan, came up to my dad, signed some stuff. And he said like he was interested in wrestling. My dad gave him his card. And then Drew always talks about the story about how he actually called him back. Like, my dad wasn't just like the person that like kind of blows smoke up your ass. He actually called him back, told him what he needs to do, and like gave him the direction that he wouldn't be here if he hadn't. And so I always thought that was a really cool story. And then to know that Edge was living with us since we were kids, very similar story, where we met him in Toronto and then like helped build Edge and Christian up. And it's like, so there we are sitting front row where both those guys are headlining the Clash of Clans like pay-per-view. And like, I'm videoing my dad, and like, just because like he's in awe, he's never seen this perspective before. He's not sitting on the back booths on the little cases or anything, watching it off a TV thing. Cause that's why he hates going to those shows. He'd prefer to watch it off his own TV. Cause it's just easier, right?
Totally.
And he's like, he gets more of the experience, but this time he's sitting in the crowd. He had enough security around him that nothing was going to happen. But it was the most surreal thing. And I'm like, you just made like two guys whose favorite wrestler, because my dad is both their favorite wrestler. You're sitting in the crowd of a sold out event in the UK, and like, they've never been here before. Like, it just was such a surreal experience. And so like, those are the things that like money just can't buy you. Like, I really don't believe that they can buy you. Like, that was the best. And my dad, we ended up staying for the whole show.
Yeah, I saw that like, actually. I'm glad you brought it up, because I watched that pay-per-view, and that funny enough, I was like, I've never seen Bret sit ringside like that. And and then Tyson Fury was there too. Yeah, I saw you guys took some pictures with him and got to meet him and stuff. And speaking on Drew though too, like you mentioned your dad's biography. I haven't seen the one you mentioned. I did watch a couple months ago. I got caught up on the A&E biography. Oh yeah. The 2-hour one on there, and Drew McIntyre talks a bit in there, and like he's like, if you watch closely, and they even showed it, a lot of my moves I'm trying to channel Bret, you know, like his kip ups and stuff like that, or like and the way that he falls is like he's trying to do it as the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, you know. So it's like it's pretty cool. I mean, and obviously, you know, Bret and the entire family have been revered for many, many years over, as we talked about. So it's like, it's got to be a little bit old hat, but for me, it's got to be cool too, to be part of that family and see like everyone just look up to somebody, you know, look up to you guys like that, or look up to the whole family, really.
Well, I never really know how to describe like my family's dynamic. Like, when people like ask, or like, oh, some people see my dad as a professional athlete. Some people see my dad as an entertainer. Some people see him as an actor. And it's like, I feel like wrestling is like this weird piece of entertainment that fits all the molds
it's such a beautiful,
of that.
It's so beautiful in that way. That's what I love. That's what I love about wrestling. Me and Brandon have talked about that since the beginning. It's like, and my wife is not a big wrestling fan. She didn't grow up with brothers or anything like that. She, you know, so she didn't. She wasn't exposed to it, but now she is. You know, because I'm a big fan, and I have a 6-year-old son who's a huge wrestling fan. So it's interesting, because I try to tell her, I'm like, just watch a little bit of it. Like, I understand some of it if you're coming into it in, you know, your late 30s for the first time ever. You know, you might not latch onto it as we did when we were kids, right? But I'm like, we got to try and have the open mind about this and understand that, like, it's a little ridiculous at times, but it's also a little serious at times. It's also a little bit like, and there's so much going on. There's something for everybody there. You just have to find what it is that you're going to latch onto, and then you'll fall into the rest of it, I think. Because it is a buffet of entertainment. And like, who doesn't like a buffet? Who doesn't like a buffet? Like, come on.
Yeah, dude. It checks all the boxes. Seriously. If you want drama, you got drama. If you want the action, you got the action. Entertainment, it's there. Comedy, it's there. Like, pro wrestling is just that. It's
and the impressive nature of the athleticism too. I mean, if you're just a sports fan or, you know, like anything, like, you can latch onto it from that too. If you like learn about what they're really doing, like what they're like what Beans here is saying, like legit shit in the dungeon with Stu, just like wrapping people up and making them cry, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I always, like, when I was talking to Chris and them at my dad's bar, I made like some very self-deprecating and humor. And I was making these jokes because, like, I do work for EMS, work for ambulances. And so my job is already chaotic enough, and people are like, oh, aren't you worried about what kind of calls you take or whatever? And I'm like, do you know what kind of family I grew up in? Like, my family, I was like, I got PTSD a long time ago. And so Chris and them, I think they're a little taken back on what I said, because I'm joking, of course. But I was like, it was such a confusing lifestyle to be Bret Hart's daughter. And I was like, because, like, 1 second, my dad was so loyal to the business, is what I always talk about, like the kayfabe and all of that stuff. Like, that was all real to him. So growing up, like, the feud between my Uncle Owen and him, that was real. Right. And, like, so when at Sunday dinners, they wouldn't eat together. So when we all go out to my grandpa's, like, they still stayed in character so much. And then I would be confused.
Even at your grandpa's house, huh?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow. In front of family members at the airport. My dad actually tells a funny story about how he was at the airport, and I guess security stopped him and my Uncle Owen, who weren't talking. They weren't talking on whatever part of the storyline. And then they were like, we're going to give you an extra security check or whatever. And I think they were running behind. They were going to miss their flight kind of thing. And then my dad whispered to my Uncle Owen, like, in the lineup. And then the security guys burst out and they're like, we knew it. We knew you guys talked. Like, this is the whole reason.
They tried to sandbag him the whole time.
Yeah. And he's like, we knew it. And he's like, now you guys can go. And then my dad's like, we almost missed our flight. Like,
just for you to prove a point. You dicks.
Like, what the heck?
By the way, what a great rivalry that was. Like, what a great storyline. Like, I mean, that was, and at the time, it was Battle of the Belts too. I mean, I remember watching that and, like, man, it's such. I do want to say I think some of my favorite storylines have involved someone from the Hart family a lot of over the years when you talk about. I mean even getting into the Montreal screw job and everything like that too. I mean, and the rivalry before that.
That build up was great.
The build up that got him to that point. You know, I mean, it was so funny as a kid to watch when WWF at the time, not WWE as it is now, but WWF at the time, would go into Canada and all the Harts were baby faces. But then at the time they'd go into the American arenas and they were heels for the first time. Oh, not for the first time. I guess the Hart Foundation with Anvil was originally heel tag team as well. But like for me, like I kind of missed that era a little bit, you know, because I was more in the 80s. Sure. By the time I was a Hart fan, it was all babyface from that point. You know, just excellence of execution. Like we're going in leather jackets, great music videos every once in a while. Those were always fun.
See that when you do get to meet my dad one day, make sure you ask him about gym stories. Gym stories are always the best stories.
Oh, yeah. Do you have any gym stories?
I remember being like the one that always stands out to me is going to my grandpa's for Sunday dinner because my Uncle Jim was married to my Aunt Ellie, my dad's sister. So he was my uncle. Yeah. But you'd see my Auntie Diana braiding my Uncle Davy's hair, doing the actual like cornrow braids.
Wow. Remember that? I can't, before we go on I love that story. I don't mean to cut it off, but like, I just want to point out to all the listeners and Brandon at home, like, you got to picture this. This is at Sunday. They're doing the braids. This isn't some, they're not in some dressing room, like with all the lights and like someone's just back there, like dolling them up. This is like getting ready for it at Grandpa Stu's house. That's amazing. I love it.
Awesome. Well, my grandpa's house, like if I can find a picture, which I will, but it used to be an old military hospital. So like, if you can envision, like it was very industrial looking, like almost like a commercial kitchen. Like even like the tiles on the floor and the way that the kitchen was, like it had the big sprayers if you're in the back kind of thing, like doing dishwashing. And they had like a big butchering board. So like it was very, very like commercial style. And so you have to imagine that's where we would be sitting. And then my aunts you know, doing Davy's braids. And then Jim would be sitting there because everybody would corral around my grandpa the same way that I see it today when people corral around my dad at like a dinner table or anything, and they start asking him questions about wrestling or what they should do or about their shows that are coming up. And like, so you have wrestlers from various different backgrounds, not even just my uncles that are sitting there. Like there's German guys that are coming in, and then there's midget wrestlers that are there. And it's like, for the longest time, I didn't even know that a midget was an offensive term because
it wasn't at the time. I mean, that just changes, and it wasn't at the time. It becomes derogatory over the years. Like we and you just try real quick on that. We'll just nip that in the bud too, because it's like you can't hold it against people too much. If we got to read into what the context is. You know, totally. Where's your heart at? Are you ignorant to the fact that you can't keep up with everybody changing what the words mean? Sure. Like try to be sensitive when you can and say, "Oh, I fucked up. I'm not going to say that again. Sorry." But like understand where my heart was when I said it. You know what I mean? Like it was a context. Let's have a little context, people.
Yeah. Fuck it. Totally. 2 episodes ago, I said I saw a midget wrestling show. I did 2 days ago. They had one at the county fair. It was great. But I called it midget. It's micro. Micro is the term now.
Micro is the term now. Dwarf.
And, but I swear, like when I talk to the midget wrestlers today, like there's one named Little Buffalo, and he calls himself a midget. Yeah. So it's like
some of them do, some of them don't. Like it just so it's
like it is the context.
Anyway, so you even have some of the micro wrestlers. I'll say it that way.
Johnny is
as the host, and I am micro. Yeah, Beans looked down at me as I walked by. She looked up at her crush and then looked down at me and was like, "I don't even think that guy's in the band." Right, yeah. So let's get back to this story. We're at the dinner table. You got all sorts of different wrestlers from around the world, including some of the micro wrestlers.
Like, and then I remember my Uncle Jim. Because he always did. He played with his goatee, and then finally, just being a kid, because like I wasn't necessarily scared of him, but like usually when my grandpa was talking, you listen to my grandpa, especially because he was really hard of hearing, and so. I remember just once I just reached over and it just grabbed. I just had to feel it myself. He let me do it once and then I went in again. He's like, "That's the only second time you'll ever get to do that." And I always remembered that story that like he scared me and then I knew he was just joking. But he was
How old were you at the time?
I had to be like 6 or 7. Like it was very young enough to be like, "Uh-oh, did I do something bad?" And it's like, but still old enough to be like, "No, that's your uncle. Like, chill."
Yeah. What would you give Brandon to be able to stroke Jim the Anvil Neidhart's beard?
It'd be fun. I designed a shirt for him years ago when WrestleMania was in New Orleans. He was at WrestleCon.
Oh, okay.
I got to design one of his tees. It was cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my dad was at that one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure because they went to New Orleans. But my dad always comes home day of show. So really? He usually goes to the WrestleCons and stuff. And then he tried to get home in time to watch the show from his house.
Yeah. Except for when he was in the UK.
Yes, except for when he was in the UK because he couldn't. But it was such a short trip. It was the coolest thing that I think I've ever witnessed.
So in that too, when you said you were staying with your dad, Chris and Calvin said that Bret had your father had just flown in too from Detroit. Was he in Detroit for SummerSlam and then like came back that day to watch? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Just as you described it. Okay.
Yeah. Like otherwise I would have actually tried to bring my dad to the Lexus show because I didn't know that they're huge fans of my dad. And it's like I could probably get him in the back and at least like to say hi, but he'd just been flying all day because he had to drive from Detroit to Windsor and then fly back from Windsor to Calgary. Oh. And so like so he had like an annoying flight kind of day. Mm-hmm. And so it's like I hate to bother him when he's tired. But I came up and he was sure enough watching SummerSlam as soon as I was getting the glasses signed.
That's so bad.
Yeah, but that's just who he is.
So the Alexis on Fire guys, none of them have met your father yet?
No, Dal has. Yeah, Dal has. And mostly because like Alexis on Fire took a really big break for a while. Mm-hmm. So it's like, and then the few shows that they have played since, like, I think my dad's either been out of town or it was at the Stampede. Like, I know like last year they were here for the Stampede and there's no way that my dad would be able to get onto the grounds without being mauled.
Oh, for sure.
So there's just way too many people down there for him.
That's cool. Well, I just want to, I'm a little bummed that Dallas already met, because I was going to say, like, it would be really cool if I get to meet him before anyone else in Alexis on Fire, even though they did the introduction to you. So that would just be fun.
That's what I was actually laughing when Dal met him, because it was like, I knew that Dal was a fan, but I didn't realize that Dal was a fan until he met my dad. Because it was like, he sat down, he's like, SummerSlam 93. Like, he had like all the dates, he had everything, like he just went into it. And I was like, okay, like, and I mean, I have a respect for that again, that like he didn't wait or like tiptoe around him, and so instead he went in hard and like he asked him the questions that my dad wants to talk about. So I was like, okay, I can leave you two up to it. So
that's fantastic. That's good to know. Yeah. So, I mean, how much did you know was kayfabe or reality going on with a lot of over the years? I mean, you were younger. I mean, when we're talking about things that I already mentioned, like the Montreal screw job, I'm sure it's been talked about till the cows come home on that one. But when you're that young, are you privy to information about the storylines happening, or are you kind of like in the dark and feeling it for like a fan would, and feeling it to be quite real?
Yeah, like I would say, so like kind of circling back to my original point about like the PTSD thing is, my Uncle Owen, I always think of like my dad and my Uncle Owen's feud and going to my grandpa's and being confused, but then my Uncle Owen being over on Saturday at our house and they're talking. But then in front of people, they're not talking at my grandpa's and being like, wonder what he did like in the last 24 hours that like my dad's so mad at him for, like it being confused by that. But then like where I always make the joke that I really did probably get PTSD is my dad was so loyal to that business that when he fought Stone Cold at WrestleMania 13, and like he's bleeding everywhere, I'm in the crowd. And so I remember like Stone Cold, he came over a few times before like that match occurred, probably throughout the year to like discuss things. And then I think we even went to did like a wrestling cruise thing, and like again they had to sit on opposite sides of the table, and it's like being confused by all those small pieces, because like getting along with Stone Cold's daughter, why are our parents so angry at each other and not understanding, and it's also not really being explained either. And so then I remember like right before WrestleMania 13, because we're sitting in the front row, my dad and Steve, they like high five kind of thing, like they're buddies in the back, like raises the curtains there. And then all of a sudden we get taken to our seats, and then all of a sudden like there's my dad like basically brutalizing somebody in the ring, is like how I see that, and like being a kid. And so it flashes to me, if you ever watch that match, it'll flash to me as a kid, and I'm the one that's covering my face and I'm crying, because it's like, Steve's a friend, like why are you making him bleed, like look at you did essentially. But like my dad never explained it.
That's so weird, because I do remember watching that. I remember watching it vividly, and they went to the family a few times on the shots and mentioned it and be like, "Oh, this brutality," and like, you know, I believe it was JR was still commentating at the time, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So it was. I remember that, and that was incredible, because Stone Cold Steve didn't tap out no matter what. He just wouldn't tap out. It was an incredible match.
Well, and my dad still has the blade, like, so in part of the Hitman Bar, like one of the coolest parts of the bar, in my opinion, is like there's this framed picture of my dad has him in the sharpshooter, he's bleeding all over the face. It's a very famous picture. But my dad always kept the blade, because my dad was the one that cut Steve, stored it in his mouth. And so when he was ready, because Steve was I don't want to say too scared, because obviously it's Steve Austin. I don't think he's scared very much, but he didn't want to cut himself. He was scared that he would screw it up. And my dad asked him to trust him and that my dad could do it. And he's like,
had Steve not done any color work before?
I don't think so. Not on himself, maybe, is like what I'm understanding. That would be something you would have to probably ask my dad. Like, I mean, I just know that my dad was the one that stored it. Either is in his wrist or his mouth. I'm pretty sure it was his mouth, because he spits it out. Yeah. And then you can like see him, like if you ever have the opportunity to watch my dad narrate this match, it's such a beautiful thing, because he'll tell you each like high point where it's like, this is where I spit the thing. It's like, oh, okay, now I'm seeing it. And so it's like, he does it, and then he had like the perfect cut. He said that it bled just enough, but like wasn't going to hurt him. And so he has that blade still, and it's framed in a picture, and it's signed by Stone Cold Steve Austin and stuff. And that's at the Hitman Bar. And it's such a cool thing. It's one of my favorite things to see. But like circling back again to that, not knowing that it wasn't real, or like my dad never told us that. And like he still, I think even after the match, like seeing me upset, he still was loyal to the fact like that was real. He needed us to believe that it was real. And then I told Chris and them at the Hitman Bar, I was like, I used to get made fun of as a kid because people would be like, oh, what your dad does is fake. What your dad does is fake. And then you come home and you go, Dad, everybody's saying that what you do is fake. And then all of a sudden be like, well, no, it's not fake. It's as real gets. Go back to school and it's like, no, it's as real gets. And, you know, I would see my aunts pulling out staples from my dad's head, or he would have stitches, his knee injuries. And so like, I believed him when he said it was real because the injuries are real when he's at home with his family. And it's like, so like, how do I defend that? And like, finally, think like years went on, and I always make fun of my dad because I'm like, I waited far too long to know that wrestling was fake. It was like grade 8 when I started to figure it out. And I finally like, Dad, you got to tell me if this is real or fake. And he's like, listen, the athleticism is real. He's like, you have to be an athlete in order to do this. And there's a beautiful art to this. He's like, but the storylines somewhat might not be real. And I was like, okay, I'm almost like 14. Now you're telling me this? Like, I was so upset. I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like, I just how much of a bozo I look like.
It does sound like that is some dedication though, Brandon. Yeah. Like I'm thinking about it from like my perspective of like if my son saw, like, obviously not on the same level. My son, like, he gets to separate me being on stage versus me being, you know, stay at home dad. But like I would explain it to him and be like, well, when I'm up there, I'm entertaining. So I'm gonna, you know, grab my crotch, flip somebody off, blow kisses, do whatever it is I'm doing on stage. But that's my persona over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, but exactly. I explained it to him because I could only imagine just walking by him and just letting him try and figure it out for himself and be like, yeah, it is what it is.
Well, and then I've kind of tried to take the same approach with my son. Like my son is 8, and like he hasn't really been able to put it together, which is interesting. Like he likes wrestling, and he'll see Grampy, which is my dad, on the screen.
I love it, Grampy.
And then all of a sudden he's like, what is Grampy doing? Like, why doesn't he look like that anymore? Like, you know, it's like just kind of questioning everything. And then it's like he's starting to figure out like, oh, Grampy was actually like a big deal. And now it's starting to like hit him in a lot of different ways, like him and my nephew Bo, who is the same age. And like now they're wrestling. They love Rey Mysterio. Like they think it's just the coolest thing. Like Gray got to go. That's my son's name, Grayson. He got to go to WrestleMania for the first time this year, and he's like just absolutely mind blown. And it's like
so good,
right? And it was a fantastic. Like I love going to WrestleManias. That's my thing. I love going to SummerSlams too. Those are my 2 favorite shows to like go to. And like I tried to explain to my spouse, who hasn't also been to a WrestleMania before, I was like, I don't know if you're prepared. Like this isn't going to be like a house show. Like
this is different.
This is next level. Like this isn't like a concert either. Like this is just next level entertainment. Like you got fireworks, you got famous people everywhere. Like, and I don't know. I didn't know how he was going to take to it. But he actually did so well. And like he got to hang out and he got the full experience. It's in Los Angeles, like it was in Los Angeles this year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it was just such
Brandon missed it, but I got to take my son and our other co-host on the show is not here today. Got to take it. We all took our kids. So it was 2 nights, obviously. Yeah. We got a suite in the first night, brought a bunch of kids and had that kind of fun. And then the second night I was like, no kids, it's all adults. We're gonna party in that suite while we watch this. It's our time now. So it was fun. It was, actually the second night Matt ended up bringing his 2 kids. So they hadn't been to anything like it too. All the kids, just like you said, like with your son and nephew too. Like it's being able to see it through the kids' eyes again now. Like I don't know if it might be different for you because you're part of the family and everything. But like for me, like I grew up loving it. talk about kayfabe, believing it, everything like that, and then learning at a certain point that it's all that the shoot aspect of it, and then going through, and then like you have like times, I don't know, maybe not for you because you are part of the family, but there was a time when I stopped watching or paying attention as much. You know, you tune in a little bit, but it wasn't every week like it was for maybe for a while. Yeah. And then you come back to it now. I'm coming back to it now with seeing it through my son's eyes, you know, and he's just a big wrestling fan now. And it's so cool. Like all day, all morning, we'll throw on AEW or WWE and get caught up because I don't really watch it live. It's, you know, I usually record it. And he's just wrestling like one of my big pillows on my bed, like the whole time. And I'm just like, and I'm remembering when I was his age doing the same shit, watching WWF Saturday Superstars right before the monster trucks would come on. Like that was like my Saturday mornings is the same thing, and it's just so neat to see.
Yeah, it is. It comes full circle. Because at first I was like, maybe Gray's not going to be into wrestling. Now it's like, as soon as he went to WrestleMania, it's game over. I hope I didn't put the expectation too high. Like, this isn't going to be every week.
do you think that he's? I mean, obviously, I guess this is a question here. In your family, do you guys ever push anyone to follow the wrestling career, or is it kind of like, here it is if you want it, or do you guys kind of like? Do you kind of push away? Is it like one of the three, right? Is it like you embrace it, you push it away, or do you just, if they discover it on their own, they're...
Yeah, like I would say my cousins were a lot more interested in the wrestling aspect than we were, like actual wrestling, like getting into be wrestlers.
Right.
But we've always been tied to it somehow. So like even when my dad was not involved as much just because of the Vince stuff and like WCW stuff, we still loved it. Like, and we still are active in it. Now my brother is starting his promotion, which like I was going to say, like he'd be a great person for you to talk to because like he does have a lot of these wrestlers that are coming in for his promotion. I'm trying to think of some of their names. Like Moose is one.
I know Moose. He was on the narrative with EC3.
Yeah, and Chris Huss. I think it's Chris or Curtis Hussey. Chris Hussey. This Fandango. That's how I think of them. Yeah. And so like they've been coming down, and then Altus. I always want to say Aldous Snow, but that's not his name. Aldous Snow
is amazing though. For getting Sarah Marshall and get him to the Greek. The Sorrow Suckers. The Sorrow Suckers is the best name for the groupies I've ever heard in my life, by the way.
Right?
I was like, how do we do that with Avenged? Like the Sucking Sevenfold? I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. But it's like he has
Sevenfold
these guys coming down. It's good.
That's good stuff.
But he's like, we all have like a different perspective, like from the wrestling. Like I'd say my sister's the least, I guess, interested in it because it scares her. But then, and she's the oldest, which is funny. And so she's the oldest and she can't watch it. Like we were watching Edge do a cage match once and there's tacks everywhere. She thinks that he's dying. I was like, okay, man, you're old enough now. Like, you know that it's not real. Like, he's fine. And she's like, I can't watch this. And like, I just always remember it gives her too much anxiety. But then like Blade, my youngest brother, he is like my dad's protege. He's the one that like would have been in the back dressing room the most. He would have the most interesting stories from like, I guess being a kid and like following my dad around. He's always the one holding the flag behind my dad. Like, you know, he was just his like protege.
I know who you're talking about now then.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I've seen that many times.
Yeah. And he looks just like my dad. And like, he's very animated. Like Blade, I'm so surprised that Blade didn't actually get into wrestling. Cause I always say like your dad's number one fan. He's always we're always wearing something Bret Hart. And I'm pretty sure at work, most people are like, wow, she must be like a huge wrestling fan. Cause lots of people don't know who my dad is.
They don't,
it's like,
that's funny. Yeah.
They don't know that that's your dad that you're wearing on your shirt.
Yeah, no.
That's awesome. That is awesome right there.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories, like, because eventually, like, if somebody does like say something, like, I'll always like admit that it's my dad. Like, I'm not hiding anything. But there's this guy that's like avid wrestling fan who I'm really good friends with now. But he even had my dad as his background on his computer, and not realizing that he's working with me. And then somebody like comes over to me and like hits me. And they're like, hey, he has your dad as his background. And it's like his Facebook picture, like he's a mega fan. And I'm like, oh, okay. So like, what do? I think I went to his desk and I took a pair of the sunglasses. And I was like, hey, just so you know, like I'm his daughter. And he was just so mortified. Like he could not believe, could not believe that he had this stuff all up and like had no expectation of meeting me, didn't even know that I worked there. And then it's like, I just went up to him and he's like, we've been really close because he listens to a lot of heavy metal now too. And so, well, he always has. And so he's actually one of my concert partners that I always take to like go to my weird concerts. But like, I always think it's funny, like to be able to deliver that. And it's like in those instances, like I can see he doesn't want to talk about wrestling because he thinks that it's going to be too much. And it's like, okay, well, if you won't, then I will. Like, and I just bring it out of them. And it's like, then they realize pretty quickly that we can talk all day about wrestling.
Yeah. It's funny how people like try to hide their fandom about wrestling. And it's weird because people don't do that about anything else. But like pro wrestling, people try to hide that fact. It's like, dude, if you like wrestling, fuck it. Wrestling's awesome, you know?
Yeah, why not just say it?
Yeah.
I want to know who your favorite wrestlers are. Like, I do care. And like, I usually can go toe to toe because I think most people expect me not to actually know a lot about wrestling. So maybe they do think like, okay, Bret Hart's daughter, and like she probably knows just like the top tier guys. But it's like I still go to indie shows in Calgary. Nice. And like I go and like try and see what's like happening. Like my good friends are indie wrestlers too, and it's like I actually love the sport the way that my family raised me to love the sport. Like I don't just care about like the show business part of it, and like I don't watch wrestling as much as I used to, and I think a lot of the storylines is the reason for that. But like I did start to get into it again last like say 5 years, and like I like the Uso storyline right now that's happening.
It's
like,
so good. It's so good,
right? Well, I even
really
asked my dad, I was like, "Is Jay really gone?" He's like, go downstairs." I'm like, well, I just want to make sure because like I really like him.
Wait, so when you ask your dad that, like I didn't realize, is your dad still working with? Does he still have a lot of inside information with WWE? And
I feel like he would, but he still wouldn't tell me.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's still so loyal that like even my cousin Natty and stuff, like I believe that like if I went to her and said like, hey, I need to know like this is keeping me up at night, she probably would stay very loyal. Like that's just how we were raised. But awesome. I'm like always trying to look between the lines, like, okay, I can read off of your face.
Isn't that great though? Like, so you get to do it in a different way because you just described it like you're literally talking to your dad or your cousin or someone, and you're like getting a read on their face. Me and Brandon, as just fans, we do this all the time. We get on the phone and talk to each other and try and figure out what it is in between the lines. Like, so where are they going with this? Which part of it is, because like you always hear it, a lot of the stories are based on reality just turned up to 11, right? So it's like you get that and you try and figure out as a wrestling fan, what's the original story here? Like, what is this that they've expanded upon, you know? So it's fun. Well, that's the other aspect that we're talking about being wrestling fans. And no one, like, if you're not a wrestling fan, you don't understand. Like, it's not just a buffet of watching the entertainment. This is fantasy booking was way before fantasy football. Like, you know what I mean? Like this was like something that we always got to discuss as big wrestling fans, or wrestling nerds, however you want to call it, where you just like get on the phone and with your buddies and you're like, no, this is what I think is going to happen next. And well, what if we could get these two guys in the ring together right now? You know, like that's super fun.
Well, I think that's the fun part too, is like once you figure out that like kayfabe is a thing and you get past that, it's not like when you realize Santa isn't real and like now you're bummed out. Like there's a whole other fucking side of it now, because it's like like you just alluded to, what is the story behind this? Where are they going to go with this? And then you try to do the fantasy booking around it. I think it's a whole nother level to it, which it just makes wrestling a buffet for everyone. I love it.
And like I am very like grateful and thankful that my family has kept that loyalty and like the kayfabe. They easily could tell me what's going on. Like even my cousin TJ, who's married to Natty, he does a lot of the storylines. So like I for sure could get an insider insight if he was willing to give it to me. But like at the end of the day, it kind of ruins it all. Like if I were to do it, and like I think that TJ's loyalty, he would never tell me. Like he just, he grew up in our family. Like him and Natty didn't just meet in wrestling. Like TJ's from Calgary too. I was calling him a cousin far before him and Natty even dated.
Oh, what? They were. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, so he was my cousin Matt's best friend, like, and since they were kids, and he was at my grandpa's Sunday dinners every week,
And
like
that's how they
since
got
we were
together.
small kids. And so, and like I don't know why, like where TJ actually was from in Calgary, because he was just always there. And my cousin Matt passed away when he was really young. He was 16 from flesh eating disease. And yeah, but TJ still came. Like even past that, like TJ was always there. And so then I think like once he got older, he started dating Natty, and their first true loves, like they've been together forever. But he was like, since we were small kids, he was cousin TJ. He's just another guy. Yeah, another guy at the house that's somehow related. That's how I look at that. And then not realizing he's not blood related.
Yeah. Natty figured that one out first, right?
Yeah. She had to go in hot. It's like, I remember being young enough, because Natty's quite a bit older than me, but I remember being young enough being like, so wait a second, she's dating our cousin. Like it was something that crossed my mind. Like it's like, no, TJ's not blood related. I'm like, you sure? Like,
are you sure?
You positive?
This whole time.
Yeah. But they really are. Like my cousin Natty and TJ are like, I couldn't speak any higher than two individuals, like aside from like obviously my dad and stuff, but they are such humble, kind, will do whatever they can for you to like put a smile on your face, people. And like I felt so bad. The SmackDown was just here last week, and I actually did my gender reveal at SmackDown. Natty helped me. Oh, nice. So like she wore the colored glasses of if it was a boy or girl, and so it's a boy.
Yeah.
But so
congrats,
she came
by the way. I did see that on your Instagram as well. And
yeah, I'm so pumped. Like I feel like I'm a boy mom, so this is a good thing for me. But Natty, just their willingness to help me in all of that. And like, so cool. You know, take my son and my niece and my nephew up on the ramp and like give them that like full scale experience, like, because they still are so young that they don't really understand that like this is their family that is doing it. Instead, they're like, oh my God, why are we going up here? Like, we don't, like, we're so special kind of thing. Like, how come
that's
we're
gonna
so
be
special?
So cool.
Yeah, and it's like to give them that and like the nerves that go along with that. Like I remember getting that kind of treatment when I was a kid, and like I'm sure that you've done some really cool stuff with your son too. And it's like,
yeah, bringing my
you can't buy it. Like,
no,
you can't buy
and you get to see that joy and happiness out of them. And I think that's the coolest part. You know, like this is actually a good transition for it too. I befriended a lot of the guys over in AEW. Over the and I saw you went to their last showing there too. You mentioned like the cool things to get to do for your son, like going to WrestleMania in the suite was amazing, right? But when we go to AEW, I befriended Darby Allin over there. He comes and stays at the house now. He came on the show years ago, and now he's like he's just a homie now. Like he's just a straight up homie. But he's come over with the TNT title. My son's gotten to hold it and stuff. I've got pictures of him at like 3.5, 4 years old holding it, and I'm like, you have no idea how fucking cool this is right now. Like, it was like, because it's funny because I've said this to my friends and family before. For him, he's looking up at Darby, who's the TNT champion in a newer company, not exactly the same scale, but for him, it's like if your father came over to my house with the Intercontinental title at that time. You know what I mean? Totally. I'm like, that would have been like the same. That's like the equivalent. So it's like seeing that, I'm like giving that to him and stuff. And I really like the AEW product. I think it's different. It's another addition to the buffet. It's not, it's a completely different style of promotion in my opinion. Yeah. And, it's awesome to be able to see that. And I just wanted to get your perspective on that too. Cause obviously, you know, your family was always super loyal with the WWF, as we talked about, until the inevitable Montreal screw job, and then going over to Bischoff and WCW, which from what I've heard on different podcasts didn't work out too well. Eric and your father did not get along very well during that time. So yeah, it's I wonder what the family and your perspective is on a new company. Like, I mean, because AEW's just did their 200th episode of Dynamite. They're only 5 years in now. Is it now 4 or 5 years? And that's still a brand new company.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I like if you ask me who my favorite wrestlers are, I usually obviously say somebody like my dad or Steve Austin if you're looking old school. But then
Yeah.
like new school would be Edge or it'd be Mark Henry. So
Mark Henry.
Henry's with it, yeah. Mark Henry's with AEW. So if he's with AEW, I'm with AEW. Like I love Mark Henry. Like I really do. I have the softest spot for him in my heart. Like he also trained at the dungeon as well.
Okay.
So like grew up around him.
I don't think I knew
He's just such a kind man. And like I don't know, I have the biggest soft spot for him. And since he's been doing AEW, I always heard the AEW shows are really good. And so I like everybody's like, oh, you got to go down to Las Vegas to see them because I think they were only in Las Vegas for a bit there.
Yeah, they go every year now. End of May, right? Or is it beginning of May, Brandon?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Double or Nothing. Double or Nothing is always. We went out there and had a bunch of the wrestlers come over. We got an Airbnb a couple years ago. Yeah, a bunch of wrestlers come over on the AEW roster and did the show there. And we always laugh about Tony Khan, who I've had on the show too. And I texted, he's a really great guy. He gets so excited and like it was off camera, but he's like in the crowd going like, "We're coming back here every year forever," and he's going nuts about how they're always going to do Double or Nothing at the T-Mobile Arena there. And I'm like, that's cool.
It was like the old Terry Funk where it's just forever. Yeah, forever. It was fucking great. It was so good.
But I like AEW's showmanship a little bit better, like because to me the WWE is a little bit reminds me kind of like the Kardashians. That's what I kind of see the WWE as. Is like it's just the storylines are a lot more dolled up, but the AEW is like a little bit more raw. Yeah, and it's like, and so it's like I can get behind that, and like feel like I'm just a normal goth like punk kid in the background. So like I'm always gonna go to what I feel like the black sheep is naturally, rather than the glitz and glam. Like
so you're hooked on AEW is what you're saying now.
Yeah, like I like it. Yeah, I like it, and it just feels a little bit more real and less showmanship. It's actually about the craft.
Yeah, even like the production aspect of it too. Like it doesn't feel overproduced. It doesn't feel like they're pumping in all the extra like graphics or whatever. Right? It's definitely stripped back. I like that. It reminds me of old '90s like WWF product.
Totally.
Yeah.
But they're like, I'm not so familiar with all the guys because I don't watch enough of it at home. But like, I really did this AEW show that just came through Calgary. That was my first one because like COVID was a huge contributing factor. Like I couldn't travel to go see anything really.
Yeah.
Like, so finally things started like coming back and like I started laughing because since my brother's promotion kind of started, like Calgary doesn't actually have a huge draw for wrestling, which is funny.
What?
Like, I think the SmackDown did almost sell out, but like my dad said that he has never really sold out an arena, even when he was at the peak of his career here specifically. Wow. And I don't know why, like, because it doesn't make sense. Like if he walks downtown, he's still going to get bothered. So it's like there's got to be enough fans, and so the arena is not that big. It's not like a football stadium.
No, yeah.
But SmackDown did really well, and then I think AEW did well enough, but I'm not sure if theirs was televised. I can't remember or not. And so that can be like a contributing factor. So if it's a house show that's not televised, that's going to be less seats, which is, I don't know why either.
I think it was Collision, wasn't it? Was it Collision? Or was it a house show? I don't know.
I don't remember just because I don't remember
we'll have to look at the schedule.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing the cameras there. But then I started laughing because they like SmackDown hasn't been in Calgary for a live taping for so long. I think like my cousin said 10 years. Like, don't quote me on that. She said it was 10 years, I believe. And then AEW, I don't think has ever been to Calgary. This is their first time.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that personally they came down because they were getting word that my brother's promotion is getting big. And so I feel like it was their way of smashing it.
Oh.
Because now it's like competition. We can't have a third guy come in. And like it's generating quite a bit of feedback. Like even I think it was Calvin and one of the other guys that came to the Hitman Bar. They were like, tell me about dungeon wrestling. And I was like, that's funny that you even know what that is. Like because it's just my brother's promotion that like he did it on a whim just to have all of his friends together. And now it's slowly progressing to something much bigger because it was AEW was like 2 weeks before my brother's Stampede show. And then all of a sudden WWE was a few weeks after. So it's like they almost sandwiched him in to like try and generate tickets away from. That's how I look at it. Where from a business standpoint, I'm like, did you guys do this intentionally? Because it's a lot of wrestling to be had in 1 month.
Right.
Yeah. Especially if the town isn't really known for it, like you were saying. That's again surprising. But
how often does your brother run shows?
He does one near Stampede. This year he did it like during the Stampede week because there's just so much going on. That's actually kind of hard to have a show during that time because it's even, I think the AEW guys like probably suffered a little bit because it's really hard to get to the grounds. So like to get down to the Saddle Dome and stuff, like when there's all that stuff going on, like it probably hurts you a little bit because it's not like you can really park anywhere. Like it's kind of a nightmare. But WWE was smart and did it like a week ago. And then, a week ago. But I don't know. Like, I find that it was just very weird timing. Dallas does his show. Usually he'll have another October one. I think he'll have a winter one. Like, he's doing it almost like he even did a pay-per-view. Like, he's doing pay-per-views. And, like, it's all being filmed. And, like, for my dad, like, my dad grew up wrestling in the Victoria Pavilion. Like, and that's where Dallas is hosting his shows. It's a much smaller venue, but like that's where my dad's like roots are for my grandpa's promotion. So it's like there's a lot of meaning and sentimental background to it. So if you're a real fan, there's a lot of real fans that are following it around the world, despite whether they live it in Calgary or not. So it's really interesting to see.
I'm definitely gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That's cool. Why I was saying, like, if you were to talk to like somebody like Dallas, who's my older brother that runs it. He would have such a different perspective on wrestling versus like somebody like my brother Blade, who's like the one that followed my dad everywhere. Like Blade would be more so like in your locker room, like could tell you every story like inappropriately. He's the guy that has it all, and then it's like Dallas is looking.
But is that okay? Would that have to be like over a couple of drinks without the cameras and recording going, or is that like something you would just openly put out on a podcast?
Oh yeah, Blade's not really a mute button guy. Like he'll openly talk all day long. Like
we'll get them both on. We got to have like a family roundtable at some point with this band. Like this would be amazing. By the way, I'm so. This already has been so amazing, and we're not putting a bow on it just yet. But I just want to, as we're talking, this is great for me. I'm having a. I hope you're having a good time here too. But yeah, this is. But yeah, it's just over the years of following wrestling and specifically your family and stuff, and then as I said, watching the documentary that your father did for A&E. One of the things I saw was that he's an artist, and I didn't realize that he was a cartoon artist and a very good one. And it was that was something that did you, out of all the traits, what would be a trait that you think you got from your dad? Do you have an artistic side like that as well? Or
I'd say me and my youngest brother, so Blade, are both artists. Like I do a lot of realism and pencil work. Like I'm not so much a cartoon artist. Blade's more cartoon, and he also likes the mixed media stuff. But definitely very creative people. Like we all are in our own way, but I'd say me and Blade more so. Like Blade went to an art school. I sang. So if it wasn't musically creative, I was doing something that like really weird, but a lot of my art is pretty dark. It scares people, so I don't post a lot of it, and I'm like,
well, you can share them with me because I like the dark stuff. I'll show you next time you're in California, by the way. I'd love to have you over and actually hang out at the bar and shoot some shit there. Then hopefully next time in Calgary I could go to the Hitman Bar because I was so bummed I missed out on that. It'd be really cool
to make a big thing of it. Like it's so much fun. Like the Hitman Bar is cool because they took a lot of the photos that my dad has downstairs, like in his actual basement. So it's like every magazine cover that he's ever been on, and he has them just staggered throughout the house. Like, and so it's like he has that at the Hitman Bar.
It must be a massive house because there's got to be so many of those covers.
Oh yeah. So it's like seeing all those things. Like I don't know. Like people are like, "Oh, don't you think that's like a little egotistical?" I'm like, "Nah, man. That's something to be so proud of."
Yeah.
Like I would do the same if I was on those things. Like why wouldn't you want to frame it? But like It's so.
Brandon, this is making me feel better about my gold records on the wall.
I know,
because I feel a little self conscious about it sometimes when people come over. I'm like, oh yeah, I put them up on the
wall. You put in all this work. Why wouldn't you want it to be showcased? Right?
You go back and forth though. I don't know if your dad does the same thing. I go back and forth on that. Like some days I'm like so happy I put that up. Other days I'm like, man, do I really need to put those up? Like,
I'm being so loud right now. Just be modest for a moment. No, I think that go as hard as you want. Like, my dad has like fan arts of himself, like everywhere. Like, so a lot of people don't realize is all the fan letters and stuff. It does go to my dad. It doesn't go to like a secretary that like sorts through it or anything. It goes to my dad. So he has like all these like really cool paintings that like, or there's like clay work. There's people that send him shoes or like anything that is just odd, and he keeps it all. Like he doesn't throw it out.
Awesome.
Right?
That's so awesome.
And it's like lots of those people probably don't even realize that he keeps it all. And it does. It means something to him.
Brandon,
like,
what did you send Bret when you were growing up?
Nothing. I wish I would have.
Just kidding. Yeah, I know. How good would it be if one of us had sent something that we're like, oh, I sent. No, I didn't. I never did that, unfortunately. But now I wish I had. You know.
Yeah, and like I think that he also just has a really good appreciation for art. We all do. And like I was saying, my art's a little bit dark, and people are like, I think my dad had a tough conversation with me when he got prostate cancer. Then he was like, okay, if I go, like, what do you want? And I was like, this is the most morbid conversation. I do not want to have it. Like, I was really like not into it. And then he's like, well, no, it needs to be a real conversation in case it happens. So what do you want? And like, I was like, your art, like your cartoons, like the doodles, like that really is the only thing that like, that's him. Like, I don't know. I don't necessarily care about the magazines and stuff. Maybe all the vintage tees. I'll take those. But I'm a big fan of like my dad's little doodles, like because he loves like history and stuff and like the wars, and he loves learning about them. So he has this one drawing that he did, and it was just like a sketch, and it's so detailed, like everybody's dying or like somebody's getting stabbed, and it's just all on the bottom of like etched on the bottom of a canvas. And I'm like, I love it so much. He's like, yeah, it was just something I was doing when I was bored. And I was like, I love that stuff. That's the stuff that it means the most to me.
They didn't show that on the A&E. They didn't. They kept it pretty light. They didn't show all the what you just described on A&E.
Oh yeah, he's got some weird doodles. That's for sure. Like, there's somewhere I'm like, what were you thinking though?
I love that though. I love that you just said that though. Like even in the morbid conversation, but it's like, yeah, it makes sense to me that you would want that because, and like you just were saying, like the magazines are cool, all the accomplishments are cool, but this is a piece of the real Bret, your dad. You know what I mean? I think everyone can understand or have a understanding of that.
Well, it has his quirks and stuff in it, which is like, I don't know. I'm a very like meaningful person. I love to read between the lines. Like I like to look at the meaning behind something. And there's this one, I did this art piece of Tupac and Tupac. And so he has that poetic book that he released, or his family must have released after his death. And I ripped it because it's his actual writing. And like from his notebooks kind of thing. And so I ripped it up. It's kind of like Kurt Cobain's diary. Right. If you ever read that. But I
never read it. I remember seeing it. Like I remember holding the idea, like whatever my brother had it, I believe, but I'm not a big reader. So.
Yeah. Well, neither am I. That's why I like like I can do poetry and stuff. I love Tupac. And so I'm like, okay, some of his old songs or like maybe some of his little poems. So it's really like small stuff. And I would just grab the book if I was bored at work. I could kind of look through it, but I'm not a big reader because it makes me sleepy too. So, so I was bored one day at home here, oddly enough, and I just ripped up lots of the pages in his writing, and then I made a stencil out of Tupac in it. So it's Tupac's face, but it's all of his poetry, and like even has a signature in there. And I gifted it to my spouse and his brother. Because I made 2 of them. There's so much that I could do 2. And they're like, oh my goodness. And the amount of people that messaged me, like, are you selling those? Are you selling those? And I was like, no, I just did it because I was bored. I don't know how to explain it. I'm like, people are like, can you do one for me? I'm like, well, no, I don't know how to replicate what I just did. Like it just came to me and I did it. But I always have like that weird, like I like abstract art and I like dark art. Like I love Pennywise from It. So it's always like a big character. So I love to draw Pennywise, and like my son will be going through my notebooks and be like, why do you have this scary clown everywhere? And I'm like, I don't know how to explain this to you either. Like it's just I like the demon
just
art.
Tell them they all float down
they
here.
all float down here, yeah.
Yeah. Like, maybe one day you'll get it, but you can't watch the movie. So
yeah. Are you a horror fan then? Yeah.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah.
Is Pennywise your favorite then out of like the the characters?
Like the icons of horror.
And I mean, like, don't tell my dad, because I plan to get a full leg sleeve. He probably won't be happy with it. But I plan to do a lot of it inspired by Pennywise. And people are like, what's your fascination with Pennywise? And I'm like, I like the concept that the more that you feed the fear, the bigger he grows. And the bigger, like, the more energy he has to, like, consume you. And, like, that's what I like the meaning behind Pennywise. And that's why I like to draw him. It's like, because, like, I don't like to live by fears. If I'm scared of something or if I'm nervous, I always like to just throw myself in, because it's like I don't want to be scared of it. Besides wasps, that's the only one that I can't really face. but
my son doesn't like wasps. We just went on a camping trip and he got stung twice by one wasp and he was so mad about it.
Oh my goodness. I would die. I'm still waiting for me to drop the phone right now, just because a wasp comes. And if I start running, it's not you guys.
Yeah, that's. We know why a wasp came in. Well, I've taken up pretty much most of your time here this morning, so I did want to ask about like one thing, and I don't know if it goes into something a little bit more serious or not, but I do want to broach the subject. We were talking about AEW a minute ago, and now they've had 2 of the Owen Hart Foundation tournaments. Obviously, your uncle Owen. And I was just wondering how you felt or the family felt about that, like if you guys had how that came to be, because I know that all the proceeds from like the shirts and the action figures are going towards the Owen Hart Foundation. Yeah. So I was just wondering, like, if you had any insight on that and any feelings on how that's been presented the last 2 years.
I mean, I go back and forth. Like before AEW kind of came along and started to do that stuff about my Uncle Owen, I had a really tough time swallowing. And I know my dad did too, that like he couldn't be celebrated. Like I get from Martha's point of view and the kids that he couldn't be celebrated from the WWE because of how he passed. But I feel like there was just such a huge loss for all of the fan base for so long because of, I don't want to call it stubbornness, but it feels like stubbornness at times. Because it's like WWE, yes, they'll probably make money because they wouldn't let him induct him in the Hall of Fame, right? So it's like, but he did so much work for the WWE that like he deserves to be next to his colleagues and the people. Like he legitimately, in my mind, died for the company.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, how do you not celebrate it? I get that it's like really shitty circumstances, but at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know. It was one of those things where it's like, I don't know what I would do if I was in the same position as Martha. I think that I probably would have let him go into the Hall of Fame, but who's to say, like, if I would have, like, that was such an odd time to be alive. Cause like, I remember like from start to finish that entire day of like my dad, because he wasn't at home. He came to Calgary for a few hours, or even the day before, because they were at the Hitman hockey tournament. So like WHL team, all the way in Ontario. And then my dad left from Ontario to go, I think, somewhere in the States. And my dad was notified of my uncle dying over I think the pilot came and let him know. Somebody contacted the pilot.
Yeah, that's the story I heard on some podcasts and stuff. Yeah.
And then my mom, because my mom had been away with my dad, she like was coming to pick me up because I was staying with a friend in Calgary, like while they were on this trip, because I wasn't not a hockey player, so there's no need for me to be on this WHL trip. But then I remember walking up the driveway and my mom being in tears, and like it was just such a sad moment. And then like seeing as that continued, like my dad finally did come home because he basically had to be turned around, came right from home. And then seeing my dad be in that kind of sadness, because I don't think I had seen that necessarily yet. Like it was see my dad sad. He's a very sensitive human being, but like not like that. And then like it was just the most surreal experience. So like all of that, and then it's like I get that that sadness was real for everybody, but to not celebrate somebody's life that they chose to give their life for this career, and to just pretend that it didn't exist. And then I like that AEW is at least doing something with it. And like there is some of the colleagues, like Mark Henry was really good friends with my Uncle Owen. So it's like to get to see them celebrate him, but it's still a different fan base. It just doesn't feel like it's really fitting necessarily. And that's just my own perspective. But I think at least we're making waves and progress in the right direction, that like there is somewhere to celebrate for my Uncle Owen.
And I do see that. Yeah. And I do see, obviously there's utmost respect from the wrestlers too. You know, CM Punk was wearing some colors, some Hitman colors, some Heart colors, and they all tend to put it in there during that month of, you know, those few weeks of the tournament and stuff, and try and pay homage and stuff. I think that's cool. Yeah. I had a question though when you were describing that. Maybe it's something that Brandon already knows and I don't understand. Maybe you could clarify a little bit more. Whose decision was it to not have Owen Hart in the
Martha?
It was Martha's? Okay.
Yeah, his wife won't let him have any ties to WWE whatsoever. So there's
still to this day. Okay.
Yeah, so there's a Hall of Fame, and I'm pretty sure it's Mark Henry, pleading in his speech to let him go up, like to let him be inducted. And like, because they'd been trying for so long. And it's like they basically have to pretend that his career just doesn't exist. And that's just, to me, it's not fair. Like,
do you talk to your Aunt Martha? Like, did you guys, like, is that not?
No, I think like she has maybe some bad blood with my family and how they handled it. Like, I don't think she has any bad blood towards me by any means, because I was way too young to even do anything with it. But I definitely, there's a disconnect there. And I think that eventually that disconnect, like any kid, like I feel like her children will eventually want to come around and our family a lot more, because they're going to want to know where their dad came from. It's like how I look at that. But who's to say? I think that they're all doing really, really well. Like they're all really successful and like, you know, smart, intelligent human beings, and they've only thrived since then. So like I kind of watch from like a distance that way, but like to say that I know them or could even have like a coffee with them, like they would need to ask. Like I wouldn't even know if I would recognize them off the street at this point. Wow.
I didn't realize. So I guess that's something I didn't realize is after the tragic death of your uncle, like that, you know, I guess I just didn't dive into it. I don't know if that's information that's out there, Brandon, that maybe you knew about too. He knows a little bit more than I do about certain things. And, but hearing it from you, I didn't realize there was a rift in the family after that.
Yeah. I think it was more so like how like the legal stuff happened.
Okay.
Like that's kind of where things kind of fell apart. And like, I don't know enough about it where I can even, I guess.
I mean, how old were you? How old were you when that happened?
So if I would have been 10.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Or no, 9. No, 10. I would be 10 because I was born in 88. And then if it was 99, then I probably was I probably just turned 11 because my birthday is May 17th, and then he died on the 23rd, I believe.
Oh wow! Right after your birthday.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So May is always like a rough time of the year for like our family, because you have my Uncle Davey's birthday, you have my Uncle Owen's birthday, you have my grandpa's birthday, you have my birthday, you have my cousin Matt's birthday. Like all the people aside from me have all passed. And then you have my uncle's death date. And then I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure my Uncle Davey's death date is also in May.
Wow. I don't think I realized all that, man. That's tough. Yeah, that's a tough month.
So May, I'm like, let's make my birthday October. Let's go back to like more of like the dark roots. I'm like, people like reach out and be like, "Happy birthday!" I'm like, but is it though? Like,
just change your birthday to the October 31st. You celebrate it on Halloween.
Exactly.
You just do what you want.
That's what I've been thinking. My dad's like, "It's your birthday." I'm like, but it shouldn't be. Like, it's just such a shitty.
I don't want it in this month anymore.
Yeah, I'm good. This kind of seems like an omen being involved in this month at all. Right. But like I always do, I try to find light in that. Like, because me and my cousin Matt, the one that did pass away from flesh-eating disease, we have the same birthday. So I think a lot of people, so a lot of us, like a lot of people will be like, oh, you have such a special day because you share it with Matt. And it's like, I feel like I should just give it to Matt. Like, like this could be his day. Like, it's one of those weird things where like, I just feel bad. There's a lot of sadness there. And there's obviously like, I know that people are still happy for me, but it's like, it just doesn't feel right. So I think I am going to change my birthday to October.
Well, I guess you have the option, right? It's either you change it to October or you be the light in the dark month of May for your family. Yeah. You know, you got to figure out which one you want to do, and there's no wrong or right answer. Obviously, that's up to you to decide. But if you do decide to do it in October, and you're ever in Southern California in the month of October, I do a pretty good Halloween party if I do.
Oh my
so
goodness!
myself.
Don't get me all ramped up.
It's a
costume. It's a costume party. Everybody, you're not allowed in without a costume. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Like well, I'll definitely participate. I got some good costumes. I got all my dad's leotards downstairs.
Oh man, if you show up like that, oh my god,
that
awesome. Would just I would have seen everything, and I'm ready to go at that point. You know
yeah. I mean? Like, I don't know how the leotards would look over the big old belly right now, but
when's the due date, by the way?
Pardon me?
When's your due date, by the way?
December 27th. But I'm gonna hold it in. I'm convinced. Yeah, I'm gonna hold it in. I don't want to be in the hospital during Christmas. Yeah. Everybody's like, you can't do that. I was like, watch me. I'm that stubborn that it's like, the baby will
I believe it.
January 3rd.
I believe if anyone could do it, it'd be someone from the Hart family. That's what I'm gonna go with.
All my paramedic friends are like, there's no way that, and I'm like, there is.
Yeah, you're into paramedics, like you know scientifically how this works.
Exactly. I got this one, guys. I'll prove you all wrong. The same way I knew it was a boy. This will happen again.
Well, thank you so much, Beans. This has been an absolute pleasure getting to meet you. I wish I had done it while I was in Calgary, but this is still great, and I'm so happy to have met you and started this friendship. I hope we can continue it moving forward and have some fun with some more wrestling talk down the line. There's so much more we could have got into.
Oh yeah,
but like
I know
2
we
hours
can go all day long.
I mean, like, dude, like it could just keep going. But you know, in the interest of getting back to our days, I just want to thank you for being on the show and sharing some stories and everything.
Yeah, next time I promise I'll have a better camera. I won't do it off my phone.
This is great, by the way. You have a great scenery back there. This looks
beautiful.
Look at that. Anyone that is watching on YouTube right now is seeing it, and people listening at home. It's a beautiful little balcony you're on there right now.
Yeah,
it's real nice.
And a single wasp has not bothered me once, so I'm happy. Yeah, I'm totally content.
I mean, Brandon was really hoping your dad would walk by there in the background a couple of times, but that hasn't happened. I'm
staring at his little ponytail right now. You see?
No, there's the reflection in the window, unfortunately, but. Well, tell him we said hey.
Yeah,
I will. He'll be so excited.
and hope to one day meet him and everybody else, and see you guys next time. Anytime we're in the same town, in the vicinity of one another, we gotta try and get together and share some laughs and some good times.
We will. I'll have you over here. You don't want to come to my house. This house is way better.
Again, congratulations to you.
On vacation.
Oh, this is you on vacation. I love it. Again, congratulations to you and your spouse again.
Thank you
on your baby boy, and hope the best for you guys. And we'll be in touch. And until next time, I'll see you.
Yeah, nice seeing you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, thank you for
hang out again soon. Yeah, absolutely. We'll have lots to talk about anytime. We can even do the pay-per-view. We can text each other.
Real quick. Yes, I will absolutely do that. You're now going to be the person I text. Did you see that? And real quick, though, when I would be remiss not to mention this when we were texting to have you come on, you mentioned that you might be thinking about studying up your own podcast soon.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I wanted to do like a wisdom series and talk about all the stuff that I've been through, whether it's through my family or stuff that I do. It's like paramedics, like because
a lot of that would be interesting to get into as well.
Yeah, like my job is pretty crazy. Like I'm responsible for all the event investigations in Alberta, and so like any of the really high acuity events, like the really like troubling events, like I got to be the person that investigates to make sure we did right. I work with police and fire like a lot, so it's like I get to hear the worst of the worst, and it's like, and how I manage it. So like, what can I give to people, and like what makes me more relatable to others that might be struggling with something, that's going through something. So I also deal a lot with the Indigenous communities around Alberta. It's something that I'm very passionate about. My mom's Indigenous, so, and I'm full status along with my siblings. So it's something that I'm really passionate about. And so like I have all these different like episodes I already have them written out and everything. And it's just a matter of starting, but we haven't moved into our new house yet. So like we already got the gear, and so hopefully it'll get up. It's going to be Wisdom with Sneebs. So it's just beans backwards.
Wisdom with Sneebs. I like it. So when that comes out, make sure you notify me. We'll help post it out on social media and help spread the word for you there too, as much as we can. So I'm sure it's going to be great with what you just talked about. I mean, having both sides, Brandon, of the EMS and the wrestling, and that's just the life in general. Sounds very interesting. I'll be subscribing. I'll be subscribing.
Yeah, that on top of it, you're a great storyteller, so it's going to be a great podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I hope that I can make myself relatable.
Oh yeah, you very much are. You very much are already. Like Calvin, shout out to him again, and Chris Steele and the rest of the guys. Like they weren't wrong. They said you should have her on the podcast. It'll be a good time. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Did not disappoint. Did not disappoint.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to hear that. I'm humbled. Yeah. I'm humbled. I'll let you know about my October 31st birthday party that I'll be having at your house.
Yeah, we have it at my house. Have it at my house. I'd be honored. I'd be honored to host this.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'll let you guys go.
Have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
We'll see you.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Well, that was great, Brandon.
That was awesome, man. Some great stories there. And honestly, I think that was like tip of the iceberg of what we could have gotten into and what we will get into on like future episodes with her or anyone else from the Hart family.
I think so too. I think I think you nailed it right there. Like there's, I hate to graze upon some of this stuff. You know what I mean? Like when we are talking about stories, there's so much we could go deeper into, but we're already 2 hours into this episode, and it's like,
I was looking at the clock and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
We just started talking wrestling and we're like an hour in. I'm like, oh man, what the fuck? Like,
well, there's so much. There's so much when you're meeting someone for the first time, as people know too, and just in general. You're talking to, as I said, the Royal Canadian family of professional wrestling. Like, there's generations of stories there. There's no way you're gonna tackle it in one episode. So
no, there's no shot.
Hopefully, we can talk to her brothers Blade in Dallas, and maybe Bret one day, and just those. Or we need on and off the camera, man. I'd just love to hang out.
Oh yeah, that. But I think we earmark this and we make this like part 1 of the Stampede series, and we get more hearts on this.
Ooh, I like that you're calling it the Stampede series. Damn, that was good. Damn, that was good. All right. On that note, I don't think we could end any higher than that. So thanks to everybody for watching, listening, subscribing, all those wonderful things. I had a real great time on this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. And as I said, make sure that you guys are subscribing and everything like that. I really appreciate that you do that, and keep coming back to hear us geek out on some wrestling with some fun stuff going on. So we'll keep it going, and as always, till next time. Cheers.